Welcome everyone to the BizHack Live Digital Marketing Masterclass Series. My name is Dan Gretsch. I'm the CEO and founder of BizHack and the host of today's session. Next slide. So this is part of a four-session masterclass series hosted and sponsored by Starmark and the Strive 305 initiative from Miami-Dade County. For some of you who've attended our prior sessions, we talked about how brands are rewriting the rules of marketing in the metaverse 2 weeks ago. Last week, we talked about the financial and legal implications of Web3 for business. Today, we're going to be talking about employee recruitment and engagement using the metaverse with two fantastic guests, Angela Antony and Brett Circe. More on that soon. And then next week, we're going to wrap up this four-part masterclass series with case studies on how to do business using Web3 and the metaverse. We're going to have case studies from universities, from travel and hospitality, and from B2B sales. In other words, how you can use the metaverse and Web3 in your sales process. My name is Dan Gretsch. I'm the host of this wonderful series. My background is as a journalist and storyteller, and today I run BizHack Academy, which is a fractional CMO services company dedicated to really helping small and medium-sized businesses get to the next level in their marketing. The producer of this series is Brett Circe. He's the Chief Digital Officer of Starmark, one of the leading digital marketing agencies in the country, always on the cutting edge of technology. You're going to hear a lot from Brett today about the incredible work that they're doing to really support their employees. And I then wanted to welcome Danilo Vargas, our key partner, the leader of the Strive 305 initiative at the Equity and Inclusion Office of the Mayor of Miami-Dade County. And he has a very exciting announcement, breaking news to share with us.
Thank you so much, Dan. Like Dan said, my name is Danilo Vargas, and I am the Small Business Innovation Manager inside the office of Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. And I have the honor of running her Strive 305 Small Business Initiative. So the big breaking news is that yesterday we stayed up until 2 in the morning practically at the chambers of the Board of County Commissioners, and the mayor's budget was passed. So it's a great victory because that means that we have our work cut out for us, and we're going to do this amazing work that we're doing with these master classes and our partnership with BizHack. We're going to take it to another level. So these classes will continue for all of the fiscal year 2022 and 2023. And we're going to be taking it to another gear, right, Dan? So we're going to be doing and launching some new services or products that are really going to be allowing all of you to really become black belts in marketing. Because one of the things that is part of the mayor's Strive 305 strategy is to make sure that you really become a master marketer. Peter Drucker, the great business philosopher, said that marketing and innovation make money. Everything else is a cost. It really is the key to your success. And that's why the mayor is investing in marketing, so that you have the know-how, the knowledge to really make it happen in your business and grow it into that dream that you always had in your mind, right? And what can I say? I want to thank Brett. I want to thank Dan, Tiffany, the whole team. And I can't wait to hear from Angela today, because she has an amazing technology that really shows that Web3 isn't off in the distance somewhere. It's actually happening today. And so I'm really eager. I'm going to have my notes and notebook ready. And with that, Dan, back to you.
And I want to congratulate you, Danilo, on all the work that you've done on behalf of small business owners everywhere. If you guys could just send a little bit of love Danilo's way, been an extraordinary effort. Essentially what happened is Danilo was testing a concept that he had pioneered in South Dade with Mayor Cava when she was a commissioner at the countywide level. And he was given a very tight budget, not a lot of resources, and the man has worked magic. And we've been so proud to be a partner on that. And you have earned a much bigger budget and a much larger set of services, and we'll definitely give space during these masterclasses for you to share what's coming up when you're ready to announce.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan.
You're welcome. I want to also recognize our incredible partners who have helped make this possible. First, our media partner, South Florida PBS and the Health Channel, and then the more than 24 community partners that we have who've helped promote this to their networks and to the community at large. We are very appreciative of all of you. I wanted to get started. We have an amazing set of panelists today. If you could go to the next slide, please. Angela Antony is the founder and CEO of Scoutible. And we're going to learn what Scoutible is very briefly. So just by way of bio, here's what I like to say. I first learned about Scoutible and Angela when I saw her on the main stage at the Miami NFT conference, sitting next to no one less than Mark Cuban, who's one of the investors. And Mark Cuban is a hype man. If you've ever seen him on TV, Mark Cuban loves to hype up products. And I don't think I've ever seen him hype a product more than Scoutible. And so we're so lucky that one of the main stage of a 1,000-person conference is here today to talk to us about the next generation of recruitment and employee engagement, one that is more DE&I friendly than anything that's come before it. So before we get to that, I wanted to welcome back up Brett Circe, the producer of this series, to spend a few minutes talking about technology, the technologies that are going to come up today. Just give us some basic definitions. And then Brett, if you wanted to go and play Angela's video. Oh, the other thing that I did want to mention is we like to surprise you, with a little bonus. I'm actually reading a book called Working Backwards, which is about Amazon. And back in the early days, Amazon used to offer, 2-day shipping on their packages, and then they would upgrade it for free to priority mail, even though it was more expensive. And then they would surprise their clients with upgraded shipping at no extra cost, even though that was their standard practice. So we always like to over deliver. And part of over delivering today is we're going to have 3 amazing guests from the mayor's office here to talk about the innovative ways that they're already using Web3 in the metaverse and their big plans around moving things onto the blockchain, making life easier for business owners and residents, and also applying some of these new technologies to workforce development, so we have a workforce that's ready for the jobs of the future, very much along the themes of today's session. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brett. You guys are all going to have, this is going to be recorded. You'll get a follow-up email with a link to it. We'll also be at the end of this 4th session, so at the end of next week, sometime after that, we'll be sending you a summary of key takeaways. So you don't need to necessarily take notes. We're going to be sending you the key takeaways from the 4 sessions. And you also will be automatically enrolled in next week's session, 1 week from today, the finale, where we're going to be doing case studies of how different types of businesses are using Web3 in the metaverse. Brett, over to you.
Okay, great. Let me, Angela, do you want to set up this video first for us?
You know what? I think we just let it roll.
Okay.
So before, Brett, could you just define what the metaverse is, what Web3 is, and what blockchain is?
Yeah, sure. So if you weren't unable to attend one of our first couple of sessions, some of the terms we're going to be using today is Web3, which would be like the 3rd generation of the internet. And that's really all that means. Web 1 would have been when people built websites. And the big guy and the little guy were kind of on the same playing field. They all had their own domain. They could link to each other and cross-link. Web 2 refers to social media, when people created social profiles, and all of this data is then owned by these very large social conglomerates like a Facebook or something like that. And then Web 3 is kind of the 3rd iteration of the internet, where people are going to have more control, an ownership of their own information and their own data. It's more of a decentralized model. And then the metaverse is akin to the internet, where there would only be one metaverse, and just like there is only one internet. And inside of that metaverse, instead of an internet, you have websites. On the metaverse, you could have meta worlds or meta properties, meta locations throughout. And some of the large players are creating these meta worlds that you can go in and set up shop or create a plot or something like that. And then lastly, as Dan mentioned, the blockchain. So the blockchain is a new technology that is basically sort of like a database or a ledger that is unalterable. And Bitcoin was one of the first experimental products to prove that the blockchain could function as some sort of futuristic tech that might work. And it did prove itself, and it does work. And now lots of other applications are being built onto the blockchain. And that's what allows this decentralization, or this Web3 to really take place. So those are some of the terms and phrases that we'll be using today. And with that, let's go to the video. If you can hear it, give me a thumbs up. Awesome.
Great. So there were a little bit of technical difficulties on my side, so it might have been a little bit off the timing, but generally, that was a little bit of a preview of the metaverse that we're building, which is the world's first gamified, predictive, professional metaverse. And I kind of explain what that means. But the biggest part of it, and I think another easy way to think about a metaverse is that it's kind of like a social network in a way. And I think the goal is that once we achieve interoperability where all the metaverses can play together, then it becomes the internet. But right now you see these little social networks forming. And so what you can think about of Scoutible, what we're building is sort of the next generation of the professional world, the professional network online, where everyone can represent themselves however they want to and be seen for these factors that all of our research and just people themselves feel is the most important about them, which is who they are, what their values are, what their passions are, and where those can be contributed to the working world.
Perfect. And can you hear me okay? Excellent. So let's start kind of from the beginning, which is there is a flawed process right now, a legacy process for how we recruit talent. Can you talk, and there's a DE&I component to that. There's a lot of biases, unconscious and conscious, that we bring to that process. Can you just talk a little bit about what's problem you're looking to solve?
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason I became so passionate about solving hiring is, if you look across the US economy, more than half of hires fail. And that was just such a staggering statistic, because it means that despite all of the time and resources and very smart people at all of our companies trying to get this right, we often have worse outcomes as a country than if we just flipped a coin. So it's very clear that there's some egregiously missing data or directionally incorrect data in the system that we're selecting for, that's causing us to be unable to systematically find the right person for the job. And you feel that on the job seeker side as well. Whenever someone enters the job market for the first time, they have this sort of existential crisis, like, what do I do with my life? What am I supposed to do? What am I good at? And to me, it's egregious that we have not yet found a way to help people understand where their unique strengths, where their unique qualities tend to outperform, tend to be valued in the job market. So that was kind of the real original idea behind Scoutible, is how can we help people understand who they are and what they bring to the table in the work world, in a way that oftentimes people don't know themselves, and then not only have them know it, but then be able to credibly communicate that to the job market so that they can actually get the job that uses those skills. So that was kind of the big picture of Scoutible. But then the question is, okay, well, we know that we're selecting on the wrong data, right? And if you look at all the research, like things like work experience or degrees are actually some of the least predictive data about future performance on the job. That's why when we selected those things, we don't reliably choose the right person. So what's the right data? And that was the craziest thing to me. So I spent 9 years at Harvard.
I'm going to pause real quick.
Oh, yeah,
because
sure.
I wanted to say, there's a wonderful book for you guys who do want to use like Web 1 and Web 2 that I just wanted to plug. It's called Who by Jeff Smart and Randy Street. Angela, I did see you smile. It seems like you might recognize this approach. I did want to say that's the best practices for today. Definitely highly recommend this approach for the today of recruiting, but you are reinventing recruiting, and it started with research about how broken the process really is. And so you were at Harvard, and please continue.
Yeah, so we were studying that and we said, okay, well, what's the right data? And the craziest thing is that the right data has also been known for a very long time. Every research study that has ever been done on predicting future performance on any job in any industry has every time shown the exact same data as the single most accurate hiring criteria known to exist. Not only is the single most accurate, it is the single most unbiased hiring criteria known to exist. And it is the sole cause of around 90% of all bad hires. And what's that data set? It is the umbrella of things that we call soft skills. So things like personality traits, natural cognitive aptitudes, decision-making styles, all those sorts of things. Well, so I actually got my psychology degree at Harvard as well. And so we have been quantifying this data for decades. So the big question was, well, these aren't like soft skills. These aren't like these intangible qualities that are hand-wavy. They're actually traits like our height or our eye color that can be measured. So the question was, well, if that's true, then why isn't this data in hiring? Why isn't every company just using these available tests that have existed for decades and having incredible hiring outcomes? And that's really where the crux of the Metaverse and Scoutable's technology came in. So if you've ever taken a personality test, like the Myers-Briggs or something like that, so they ask these very self-reported questions, such as, have you ever, are you punctual? Have you ever stolen before? At a party, are you a wallflower? Or are you talking to people? And so these tests are actually quite valid and accurate when someone takes that in an experimental setting to learn about themselves, or, when you're taking it to, to reveal the results to yourself. But when you take that sort of test in a pre-hire situation in a competitive context, typically there's a right answer. And so everyone scores way above the population norms on things that are perceived to be good and way below the population norms on things that are perceived to be bad. And so really those tests have been unable to be used in this specific context where the results could be so valuable. And not only does it, is it difficult to take that kind of survey-based test, but it also would take hours or days of full-time psychometric testing to get all of that data that we actually know predict job performance. So that was the kind of technology divide, as we said, well, is there a way that we can get all of this rich information for people to learn about themselves, but then also be able to communicate their best qualities to the working world without ever asking a question? And that's where we had the idea, maybe we can build a game. And that's what Scoutible ultimately did. We built the first form of it's like a movie where you're the main character, and it only takes 15 minutes. But as you play, as you instinctually respond to different situations and solve a mission, it measures all of these different aspects of how you think, what you enjoy, where your strengths are, and ultimately helps you uncover your professional superpowers.
And I actually wanted to give Brett a chance to talk about playing the game. And I think he said it was rad was the term one of your employees used, which I thought was like a throwback to the 80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to just talk about like what the actual experience. So let me just summarize what Angela said. Angela has said that the current way of hiring is broken, and it's broken for a couple reasons. One, it's broken because a lot of business owners just and companies, have a bias-filled, flawed process. And second, even though there's knowledge that it lives in the psychology world about what the right and better approach is. And then there's also just like a technological barriers and challenges that perpetuate a lot of the bad practices. And so by creating a gamified solution, Angela has created a way of harvesting the soft skills that matter most for hiring decisions and doing it in an environment, the metaverse, where people can look however they want. And so I wanted to just ask Brett, who's actually played this game and had his skills harvested, to talk a little bit about what it was like to play the game and any reflections that you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was just really, I'm on the webinar with Angela today, and I wanted to be prepared. So I'm like, let's do it, right? So I've been a small business or medium-sized business owner for over 25 years. Hiring is, never easy, because by the time you need someone, you're overtaxed from a capacity standpoint. The last thing you have time to do is read resumes, right? When you're slow, you don't need to hire someone. So you're not reading. When you have the time to read the resumes, it doesn't really help, right? So there's always this constant struggle. But and I've done a bunch of those personality tests. I've done them in live sessions, at roundtables, and in writing, and so yeah, I downloaded the app, and it took about 20 minutes. There were two. It's kind of like quests. There were two quests you had to perform, and one is like in a medieval setting where you have to warn the king that he might be assassinated, and then the other was kind of like a dungeon where you have to solve certain puzzles to get out. And I could easily see how they both kind of, maybe one's left brain, one's right brain. But what was fascinating to me is in 20 minutes of fun, that this report came back and was pretty accurate. And I was like, wow, that's really scary. How much information it was able to distill in such a short amount of time was, so then I'm like, wait a minute. So I sent it to like 3 more of my staff at Starmarkers, and I'm like, you guys got to try this and just tell me, and they're all like, yeah, this is rad. It was totally fun and super accurate, kind of scary accurate. So I'm like, wow, this is super cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's the most common response we get is, wow, how did you know that? Because the game's really designed for this context. So anything that seems obvious in the game, like, oh, if I'm friendly to this character, the game will perceive me as being more friendly. We're specifically not measuring the thing that's obvious. So, there really isn't a way to know what, how to react in a certain way, or what's being measured at any certain time. So it is meant to feel a little bit like magic at the end.
Yeah, and I didn't know if it was timed or not. I didn't, there was no right or wrong. It was just like, what would you do? And yeah, it was pretty cool. And then what I wanted to do is unlock your betaverse, and I understand it's not unlocked yet. But what I really think is interesting is that because one of the things we said when we were talking about this series with Danilo was like, we need to cut through the hype and do practical applications that are happening today of real stuff. And you are doing exactly that. You have a real practical application in a meta world where people can go and do certain things, and then use that knowledge and information to make a better hiring process.
Yeah.
Actually, there's some questions.
Let me just answer one thing, because it might be the question, but just to bring it to life a little bit, because I think that really helps. So for example, one of our clients did the exact same thing that you just did. That's the first step of anyone using the platform, is that they would have their existing top performers or team play the game. And so they had their team play the game, and then we went, we had a call to review their results with them. And what they found, we said, okay, well, tell us who your top performers are. And so we pull all their profiles into our tool. And then what they saw is that all of their top performers for this role, I believe it was a sales role, were almost clones of each other on these soft skills, on these strengths. And they were so floored. They were like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. But they're all like, they have this huge swath of huge set of strengths that are all in common. And then we said, okay, well, just because you had your whole team play, just out of curiosity, who are your bottom performers? And then we pulled them out, and they were also clones of each other, but had almost no overlapping strengths with the top performers in that role. And so think about it. these people had similar resumes, right? They both got hired for the same role. But then if you look at their performance, it is extremely clear which soft skills are outperforming in this role and which soft skills are not. And the other thing that was interesting was that the bottom performers were just like the top performers in a different role at the company. So, you know, it really helps you understand, oh, wow, this person's natural gifts are very valuable in a different place. But then the other thing that, you know, was great about this experience is what we do then with the information is we say, okay, well, now we have your top performer profile. So now we're going to go find candidates who are just like your top performers. And so we did that process. We had, you know, a bunch of their candidates and found our own candidates and brought them to them, play the game. And so we had several candidates that were an exact match on those same qualities. And so one of them was in a perfect match to the existing top performer in the role. And we said, you should really, they should interview this person. But that person's resume and demographic factors were quite different than they're used to hiring. And so we really felt the resistance. They did not want to interview this person. But we said, just for fun, why don't you give them an interview? We gave them one person first that they were more, you know, typical resume. We said, just for fun, interview this person. The second resume or second interview that they did, they hired that person on the spot. They said, this person, we never would have given a shot, but after talking to them, you were right. They are exactly like, you know, X name, our top performer, and we can't let them go. They're like a diamond. And so this is exactly the case in point where based on a resume, this person never even would have gotten past the screen. And that's what's broken in the process. But when you look at the right data, it all makes sense. And now that person's outperforming in the role. And they also said they typically interview 8 to 10 people and maybe don't even like anyone. And they were able to hire the second person that they interviewed. So that's how the metaverse and the technology really comes to life today.
And you guys can actually go to Scoutible.com and do this game to learn about your skills and get this report for free at Scoutible.com. You'll find it in the chat. Is there anything that people need to know about how to navigate the site to find the?
Yeah, I would go to Scoutible.com/employers, and you can also sign up for your company. And then it'll give you a branded link with your company that you can use to invite your team. So I'd recommend doing that. And then you can contact us and we can walk through the results with you. We do that for free for any company because that's how we bring the technology to life. And it becomes very obvious the power of it once you see that, oh, wow, it's making sense of all the dynamics on my team instantly.
Yeah, I want to give you guys another reflection just from, you know, the old world. But there's another great book called The Challenger Sale. And the Challenger Sale talks about the qualities, empirical qualities of the best salespeople. Now, historically, when you think of a great salesperson, you think of a kind of schmoozer, relationship builder, somebody who's great to hang out with and will buy you drinks. And that traditionally has been the great salesman. In fact, my father was a salesman, and that was he was a relationship-driven salesman. It turns out studies show that those are the lowest performing kind of salesman, a salesperson. And the highest performing salesperson is actually the challenger salesperson, somebody who challenges your beliefs and actively takes an effort to educate you during the sales process. That is what the actual set of hard and soft skills that are required in sales according to the data. And I think, first of all, Challenger Sale, for anyone who's looking to hire or manage a sales team, is one of the best books out there. But the other thing is, Angela is kind of taking a data and empirical based approach to helping identify and then find matches for jobs. And you can see, and we're going to talk about this during the bonus session, but you can see how this can be very scalable, right? In other words, we have workforce development folks. And intelligence does not get distributed by wealth, but a lot of people, you know, who are lower income, and we're in a very poor county here in Miami-Dade County. You know, a lot of these folks haven't had the advantages of education that Angela and I and others have had, and yet they have the right set of hard and soft skills to be very successful in very high-level roles. And so, Angela, from a socioeconomic inclusion, and for a county that's very poor and diverse like ours, how do you imagine the future of workforce development looking through your tool?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the initial missions behind our technology, was that people should have the freedom to contribute their best gifts and qualities to the world. But today, because we do use degrees, because we do use resumes as the primary selecting factors, people don't even get a chance on the things that they very much, according to the data, can do. And so how that works is that if you think about it, the fact that someone went to school or has a degree didn't fundamentally change who they were as a person, right? And that's a little bit how we treat people on the job market. We treat them like a commodity based on where they went to school or what brands are on their resume. And so there's just this ultimate fallacy that is driving all of the bias, where the most predictive qualities, which are our soft skills, who we are, how we engage with the world day to day, has no correlation with gender, age, race, any of the demographic factors. And so the diversity issues and the lack of socioeconomic inclusion that we're seeing is really just a function of not having the right data. And so what we're hoping to accomplish with Scoutible is to have everyone be able to be seen by the working world for the amazing things that they can contribute, and for people to know themselves what they can contribute. And I think that's a big piece of the information asymmetry today, where you might not know that you could be an amazing software programmer, or you could be an amazing marketer. But what the technology can help you understand is that everyone who's a top performer, in this role at this amazing brand name company is just like me. And so if I just learn the skills to unlock all of that natural talent that I have, then I can go get, a six-figure paying job.
And you have a beautiful real world example of this with one of the engineers. Could you tell us that story? And then we're going to show your B2B video.
Yes, absolutely. So, just, case in point, we had, we were hiring for a software engineer, at our own company. And what we found is that there were, we got maybe 900 applications. There's tons of people applying, and we had our best engineers play the game, just like, Brett was describing, just like I was describing with the other client. So we had our best team members play the game. And then we had, our candidates for the role play the game. And we found that we had top computer science graduates from Stanford and MIT, and all of the top schools were applying. But when we looked at the data, when we looked at the Scoutible results, there was one clear top performer who indexed way above anyone else in the pool, as being an almost exact match to our best engineers, which implied a very strong culture fit as well as role fit. And then when we actually looked at this person's background, we were totally floored. This individual was a full-time auto mechanic working in a repair garage, who had never worked in an office before, never gone to college, and had taught himself to code at night. And if you think about it, this person, would have never passed, your typical resume screen, especially when compared to the Ivy League computer science graduates. But according to our data, that person was the #1 top applicant. And so we took a chance and we hired him, and he ended up being one of our best engineers for years, went on to be a leadership role, and became the profile that we hired for going forward. And that's just one example that so many of our clients have had the exact same experience, where someone who they never even would have thought was qualified ended up being their best hire. And so that's a lot of the delta in terms of talent that we're missing on the job market today, that Scoutible can actually make visible.
So Brett, first of all, I actually have goosebumps listening to that story. I'm the son of an immigrant, but I've had many advantages, and we do a lot of work with small businesses, and just by virtue of being based in Miami-Dade County, we see how much wasted talent there is just by being born in a country where you don't have access to the same resources or education. And that's true in our own country and in many of the countries where folks arrive here from. So it's my own father didn't graduate college. And so Brett, I know you have a video you were going to share of the B2B video. So this is another Scoutible video, equally awesome. just so, from a marketing perspective, we saw two videos, one that was more consumer oriented towards the job applicants, and then that one was more corporate employer oriented about why you should use Scoutible as a recruiting platform. So Angela, we've talked about recruiting and hiring, but before we go into Brett now talking about employee engagement and how we can use the metaverse in there, I wanted to ask you one question, which is, we've been hyping this up a little bit, but we're still in the betaverse, as you call it, and so can you talk about like what is there, and be please as clear as possible about this, like what is there today that we can engage in? Like it sounds like we can go today and play games and get a report and meet with one of your team members for free to get an evaluation of that report, and what is to come? In other words, where are we today, and then
Yes,
where is Scoutible going to be in the next 3 to 5 years?
We may have lost Angela.
Okay, so that's actually her on her side.
It appears to be.
While we're waiting for her to come back, and we can come back to that question, Brett, I'd like for you to kind of talk about the work that you've been doing in employee engagement around the metaverse.
Yeah, so I mean, I do find the Scoutible interview and hiring process is fascinating, and I think that after you hire someone, you need to onboard them, and I think it's super interesting that she's doing this kind of lightweight game type effect to help profile people, because I think that the younger generation especially doesn't want to go through heavy orientation or training. They don't want to work for companies that maybe doing things the old school way. They want to work for companies that are open to new ways of doing things, right? That are open to using technology, that are open to changing the way they do things is more appealing to the younger generation. And people who want to evolve and change. So using a new hiring approach, I think is super interesting and will be appealing to the younger generation. And then what we did at Starmark, we don't obviously use that for hiring, but when COVID hit, we feel we have a pretty strong company culture. And when COVID hit, we're like, we had multiple meetings and multiple leadership discussions on how are we going to maintain our culture with everybody being remote. And one of the things that we did was we got everyone, and we issued everyone at Starmark a virtual reality headset, the Meta Quest 2 at the time. It was just called the Oculus Quest 2. And then you have to kind of train everyone on how to do these things. And what we did was, because we weren't really sure necessarily, but the very first thing that we did was we set up our holiday party, and we made it a tree trimming exercise. So, you get 35, 40 people popping into VR, and you have to train them on how to use VR. And that sounds awful, right? But if you just have a blank tree and you say, everybody, find something in VR and then figure out how to bring it in, and then figure out how to put it on the tree and make it the right size. Everyone just had it, like, it was almost like a gamified way of learning how to do VR. And then this very first session was kind of an eye-opener for our leadership team at Starmark, because it was kind of like, someone would appear in the room and everyone would laugh and give virtual hugs and high fives and clap and it was raucous. And then, a minute later, another person would appear in the room and the same thing would happen again, right? And it was just like, it went on for like 5-10 minutes. And it was like, okay, this is clearly something that people who haven't seen each other for 6 months, who, in such a tight culture organization, really, really felt that this was, a phenomenal thing. So we kind of said, let's move this to start using it on a regular basis.
And do you feel you're at a place now with the technology where the technology does in some ways a better job than traditional either in-person meetings or social outings at connecting and engaging your employees?
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of let this play while I talk, but we've been using it almost 2 years now, and we definitely found there are places where it shines and there are places where it does not. Okay, like ad hoc meetings, it doesn't really do any better. Taking notes is much more difficult. But where it does shine is when we do these like large company meetings. So twice a year we do a company meeting, like once usually in January, where we say, here's our plan for 2022 or 2021. This was the 2021 session. And then we do one mid-year update kind of for that whole plan. And we all have to get together. And we want these meetings to be focused, right? And so we're all in a Zoom right now, which is a flat screen, which is fine. But guess what? Your phone someone might be texting you. Dan, I know you're checking the chat. I know you're checking the Q&A in the Zoom, right? Other people are doing that too. And what we found is when you have these headsets on, all of that is blocked out and you are really focused on the meeting at hand. And we found in those situations, it's super beneficial. So what we decided to do, one of the things at Starmark from a culture standpoint that we think is very important from a retention standpoint is having a good culture is we every other Friday we run in 2-week sprints. We're an agile organization, so we run in 2-week agile sprints. Every other Friday at 4:30 we used to shut down and everyone would go to the bar in our lobby and get their drink of choice and some snacks of choice, and then we would celebrate the work that we accomplished that sprint. Right, because we have 2 teams. Team A would say, hey, here's some stuff we did, and Team B would have never seen it. And Team B is like, hey, here's some cool stuff we did for this other client, and Team A would see it. And then we talk about birthdays and anniversaries and new hires and just all the things you would normally do, right? And it's like the last hour of the last Friday of the sprint, everyone would just unwound, had a good time, and then was relaxed for the whole weekend, right? They weren't stressing about Monday because the sprint had ended. A new sprint would start Monday, but there was not like this, overlap period. And so we decided we're going to do these in VR. And so what we started to do is every other Friday, right, the whole team would put their headsets on and we would do our retros. And and what I did and what I'm still doing is I create a different environment every other Friday, and then people have no idea. It's a surprise, right? And some people are like, one time I did it as like a winter wonderland. I don't think I have a photo of that one, and people were wearing shorts and t-shirts and like, you got to warn us. I would have put something warm on, So sometimes it's a tropical beach, whatever. On the left-hand side, we built a winter wonderland for our holiday party. In the background, we made a Christmas card people could kind of sign with the 3D pen. But the idea was that this helped bring our culture back. And we feel that the staff does enjoy having that unwind period at the end of the sprint where we can have these, serious open forum discussions. Anyone can say anything. But in reality, it is a culture thing that we feel is important to our company.
Have the lived experience of like going to the bar in the metaverse, I'm curious, like, does everybody have a real drink in their hand? I'm just kind of curious how that plays out.
Yeah, so we did have VR, martini glasses and beers and wines and champagne bottles, right? But having a beverage with a headset on is not very easy, Dan. So one of the things that's not better. But we issued everybody stainless steel straws, right? So we're like, it's easy to drink with a straw when you have a headset on. And one of the things we learned was, sometimes you want to hydrate while your headset's on, and a straw is a much easier way to do it than a bottle. But it is still kind of fun to walk around with something in your hand in VR. It helps the immersion, right? And VR is all about being immersed, and it really does help.
I'd like to transition to talk a little bit about the tools. It sounds like you've invested in buying headsets for your employees, and that the kind of immersive experiences you're describing are based in kind of headset. But one of the things that we know is that the metaverse, which includes things like Roblox and Fortnite, do not require headsets. And while there are only about 40 or 50 million of the Quest headsets that are made by Meta, there are probably billions of phones.
Yes.
And similar numbers of laptops and desktops. So talk about the metaverse on browsers and apps, and how you did some research in terms of the professional or the business metaverse. You looked at some different platforms and ultimately settled on one. Yeah,
well, absolutely. So we kind of had the luxury. So, the Scoutible platform is app-based, and that means everyone can use it because everyone has a phone, right? So you're not blocking out anybody from like trying to use that. Because this was internal, inward facing, just Starmarkers, right? We had the privilege or opportunity of just issuing headsets. So we really looked at mostly just metaworlds that are built to support headsets. So yeah, we looked at a bunch, maybe 10 or 12. I don't remember the exact number. Some we just tried them out and deleted them because they were no good. We looked at VR Chat and vSpatial and Spatial, which that Christmas party was in, or holiday party. We also looked at AltSpace, which Microsoft eventually purchased. But what we found that made most sense for us was one called Engage. And the reason, honestly, is just because it was a more business-like metaworld, right? Some of them were very cartoony, or you had these weird avatars, and we found Engage to have business-like environments, just like I was showing you in those screenshots. They also had business-like avatars. They work hard on their cultural differences in their avatars. And actually, next session, next Wednesday, when we talk to Morehouse College, she's going to talk about how that was important to her. But what we ended up on that one. I'm not saying it's right for everyone, and I do think browser-based and app-based are important from an accessibility standpoint, because like you said, we don't know exactly how many headsets are out there because Meta does not publish that data, but we know it's probably in the 30 to 50 million range based on their financial reports. That's clearly not enough penetration to require it. So putting things on app or browser makes a lot of sense.
And Scoutible, Angela, is a browser and app-based, so that you don't have to have a headset in order to be able to play the games and use the platform. Is that right?
Exactly. Like, I think that's important to understand, is that metaverse doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a headset. There also are metaverses that only require a web browser. You can just be on a website that is 3D in nature and looks like a game environment, but you don't actually have to have hardware. And so personally, like, that's kind of where, one stop that I think will come along the way in terms of like getting more people onboarded into the metaverse is, not having the hardware requirement, but the hardware enables a lot of other different experiences that you can't just have with a browser only metaverse, but both exist.
Yeah, not every company is a Starmark that's able to invest in headsets for its employees. Starmark did it for two reasons. One, the main reason is a lot of they're a cutting edge digital marketing firm that needs to be up to date on the up to the moment technology in order to better service their clients. And when you're dealing with emerging tech, the best way to learn it is to use it. So that's number one, right? Is that Starmark, is in the business of understanding and being on the cutting edge of Web3. And then the second piece, of course, is it was a solution to a problem created by COVID. Yeah. And so by creating a better and more engaging employee experience during the depths of the quarantine, Brett was able to retain more employees and have a higher level of engagement and happiness than most average companies. So it really
certainly moved the timeline up. Right. I mean, eventually that might have all happened, but COVID did move the timeline up. Yeah, I'll also say that, like, to your point, we're in the biz. Issuing 45 headsets makes everyone at Starmark VR fluent, whether they're in the development department or the design department, which would make sense because but everyone, literally everyone, all the way through HR and accounting, everyone gets a headset. So everyone gets to have this experience because we want to make sure we're inclusive of everybody, the entire company. And then, we also chose the Engage environment because our developers know the underpinnings of Unity development platform, which we've been developing in for many years. And so it also made sense that we could also develop on that particular meta world for our customers and our clients as we need to as well.
So we're going to be wrapping up this part of the conversation soon and transitioning to our guests from the county, but Angela, definitely want you to stick on for that. But I want to kind of ground ourselves a little bit in the here and now. And so there are two parts to this question. The first is the one that I asked you before you had a little glitch, which was, tell me about what is Scoutible today, tangibly, that like I as an employer looking for folks to hire can actually engage with? And then what is the Scoutible that's on the horizon, the Betaverse Scoutible look like? And if you could do it pretty quickly so we can get to the last question. Scoutible today and the Scoutible on the horizon.
Yeah, so the beautiful thing for employers is that almost all of the functionality for hiring is actually live today. You can actually use our technology, have your team play the game, build the profile for better performance, and then use it to hire. And even, this is kind of a newer service that we're providing, but we can even scout and bring candidates to you that never even heard of your role, who have all of the qualities of top performance, much like a headhunter, but in a dramatically lower cost because of our technology. So that's sort of the employer functionality. The things that are on the horizon that we're building now are really on the consumer side. So it's really the side where we can get millions and millions of passive candidates through the metaverse, through having them play the games and do other assessments to learn more about themselves and where they best fit in the job market. So that's the consumer side, is really what we're building to be able to scout more effectively and bring more people to our companies. But most of the employer functionality is live today, and you can use it now. You can use it today.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage you guys. I mean, you're here because you're interested in the future of hiring. And so I would definitely encourage you to look at Scoutible. I did have one CEO kind of perspective question, which is, if I have all my employees go to Scoutible and get their profiles taken, are they then recruitable by other companies, or are you able to exclude them from the job searches?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, we don't poach. We never use employees as part of the talent pool. No, that's really important. It's really just a means of saying, the best data that any employer has about who will outperform in their roles are the people who already have. And so if you can just understand this treasure trove of data that you're sitting on from your employees, and then be able to understand strangers, candidates, in terms of people that and you know what it's like to work with, it just completely changes the equation for hiring and who you would hire. But yes, to answer your question, I mean, at the end of the day, our customer, our client is the companies. And so all we want to do is help them unlock that data source and then source candidates who are perfect for their culture, perfect for their roles, who never would have had or known about that opportunity otherwise.
Okay, Tiffany, you can now go and take the assessment. Okay,
except for Tiffany, we might take her.
The other question I had is similar in nature, which is just practical, like how to get started for companies that are limited in resources. The first one that comes to mind for me, and I don't quite know how this would work exactly, is like a virtual happy hour, where you could do it in the metaverse, and you could maybe even use like an existing platform, like a Fortnite or a Roblox, and all meet in there and get together. But I would love for you and then Brett to just talk about what would be like 2 or 3 things, and they don't have to be related to Scoutible, but like 2 or 3 things from an employee hiring, retention, and engagement perspective that folks could do in the metaverse, in Web3 and blockchain right now today to get a little bit of a taste of what's to come.
Yeah, so the one thing that I think is one of the biggest aspects of the metaverse that will help in the hiring context specifically is the interview. So interview decisions, this is a crazy statistic that we found in the research, but an employer's decision in an interview, or the interviewer's decision, is typically made in the first 10 seconds. All of the other time is typically spent confirming that initial gut impression. And this is not like this is not any individual being evil or biased. This is just a function of how our brains process information. And so what happens is, what do we glean in that first 10 seconds? It's typically age, race, socioeconomic signals, gender, all the things that we don't want to select for, but we can't help it. And so that's really why we see a lot of the bias that happens, and it's completely unconscious. That's really what the metaverse can prevent. We can enable people to show up for an interview, or in the working world generally, however they want to show up. Maybe I want to show up in the metaverse exactly like I look today, but that should be my choice. It shouldn't be something where how I show up, how I'm perceived, and how other people, interact with me is completely outside. I was born with it and I can't do anything about it. So that's really what I see as the metaverse enabling, is freedom of choice in how we represent ourselves in the working world. And specifically with interviews, because we know the pain point that exists there is really causing these, very bad outcomes.
That's great. Brett, how about you? What are some like 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give to a company who, like you, wanted to find new ways to engage your existing employees?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first I would say try it. I mean, if you're doing things, or you used to do things in the real world for your company culture, is there something you could try? You could try a browser-based metaworld. You could try an app-based metaworld. You don't have to have headsets for everyone, but try to do something that is fun, that is tech, that is new. Don't do things the old-fashioned ways. Because that's going to appeal to your employees, and it's going to also appeal and attract new potential candidates as well. And as a kind of a data nerd myself, I love the information trying Scoutible will give. Even if you're not going to use it for recruiting or hiring, I think it's super valuable to understand your team better and the soft skills your team has, and then those interactions with those team members might be. But something that could be fun, like a lot of businesses will do, like, I don't know, go-kart night. We used to do those before COVID, or bowling night, or like we did arcade game night once, where we went to a retro arcade and everybody had free, gameplay all night. There are things we used to do pre-COVID that are a little more difficult today, especially with the force being remote. Doing these things in a meta environment can bring people back together, where you can give virtual hugs and virtual high five. Like when we give high fives, you can feel it. You get the tactile feedback on the hand controllers, and people are like, wow, that's really cool. And you can clap with your VR hands and it makes clapping sounds. Like it's just a level of immersion that brings you together in a sense of place. Like I can't even look any of you in the eye right now because we're on Zoom, right? But in the metaverse, your eyes connect. And when your eyes connect with someone you're conversing with, it's super helpful. And also there's like 10 of us on here right now. If we all speak, we're all speaking at the exact same volume. If Dan, took you aside in the metaverse and we walked 10, 15 feet away, you and I would be louder, and everyone else would be a lot quieter when they're talking over here, right? So there's just the sense of immersion can be helpful. I think it's important to try it. Like imagine trying to explain the internet to someone 20 years ago where they've never been on it. Like it's impossible. Right? It's almost like today we're trying to explain the metaverse to people. Like just get on it and try it, and it'll open up a whole new world.
I love it. And I guarantee, and if they haven't been created yet, this is an idea any of you guys can run with, that there are VR event and employee engagement companies that would like organize an outing for you in the metaverse, lend you the equipment, and allow your distributed workforce to have an experience in the metaverse for employee engagement. Brett, if that company doesn't exist, they're on the horizon, and maybe someone
and here, it's your idea.
It's an idea I'm giving away freely. I have no interest in making that business. I have my hands full with BizHack, I promise you. I did want to share, if you could go ahead and share the screen for the slides about, I did want to share a great piece of input from Carolyn Quinton, one of the BizHack instructors. She talked about how an ER physician in Orlando is holding a healthcare conference in the metaverse where everybody has a certain level of anonymity. And the reason why that's incredibly powerful is they can talk about mental health issues without revealing who they are. I just think that's a really beautiful other example of inclusion using the metaverse. Next week, we're back with case studies from higher education, travel and hospitality, and B2B sales. Dr. Musina Morris, also known as Dr. Mom, has created an entire virtual campus at Morehouse College, a historically Black, all-male school. And it's an incredible story of how she has just unlocked the educational experience of those folks. One slide before that, please. Just as a reminder, the recording of this is going to be found on our YouTube channels for both BizHack and Starmark. And at the end of the 4th session, at the end of that session next week, we'll send you a summary of our key takeaways. You are automatically enrolled in the masterclass next week. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome our three guests from the mayor's office. Michael John Green, the Deputy Director of Economic Development, Fernando Casamayor, the Chief Innovation and Economic Development Officer, and Ana Peralta Chamas, the Director of Innovation. This is the team that basically led the adoption of Web 2 for Miami-Dade County. And Web 2 is social media. And now you guys, are tireless as you are now building out the Web3 and the Metaverse and the blockchain opportunities. I wanted to give Fernando Casamayor the floor to talk a little bit at a high level of how this fits into the vision that the mayor has set out. I did want to start by congratulating you on getting your budget passed yesterday night at 1 a.m. So you actually might even be able to talk about some things that are currently approved and budgeted for in the coming year that kind of scratch some of this. Fernando, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me. And yes, if I look a little hungover, it's because I was out partying with all the county employees at 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's not enough coffee in the world right now. Even in the meta world, there's not enough coffee. Thanks for the opportunity, Dan and Brett. Appreciate it. Yeah, so obviously I cannot take credit for our Web 2 presence. Maybe Anna, who's kind of currently in the center square for me, and that shows you how old I am. She was the one who was really the lead on a lot of the social media and some of our front-facing customer service portal. But yeah, I'm back in Miami-Dade. The mayor has hired me to come back and kind of lead this team. And yeah, I mean, innovation is a centerpiece of what the mayor is all about. I mean, she's got 4 E's that she uses for everything. That's her guiding principles are the 4 E's. It's equity, it's engagement, it's environment, and it's economy. And the metaverse and Web3, that there's a lot of synergy with those 4 E concepts that we can certainly work with and involve. We have an economic development plan that we're about to roll out hopefully next month, and there is an entire piece on innovation. And part of that is, again, all of those tech companies that are making themselves at home in the city of Miami and the region. And also, how those tech companies bleed into our other small businesses, because what's good for a large business can be very good for our small businesses too. And then finally, it's the other innovation part is how can government reinvent itself so that we, by getting out of the way, by being better at, issuing permits, for instance, or a better customer experience to our business customers, how can we help them grow their business? And that's kind of the difference in this economic plan from others that I've seen before. So super excited to work with the team. And again, thank you for having me here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And Fernando, before we jump in with sort of more of the specifics, kind of based on our conversation, kind of broadly speaking, I see you guys as operating in 3 broad areas. And please correct me, because I'm not sure this is exactly right. So one of them is what I would call like citizen services. This is largely going to be a blockchain-based play. Things like titles for real estate, legal issues, transactions that you need to do as a citizen or business with the county that are frankly better and more efficiently accomplished through blockchain. Second is workforce development. You need to create the workforce of the future. Federal, county, and state funds are dedicated to doing that. And as we position ourselves as sort of a tech hub, we need the workforce of the future, and you guys can have a big part in that. And then the third is really supporting small businesses and enabling them with the latest technology, educating them about the latest technology, very much aligned with what Strive 305 is about. So is that a fair summary of the 3 main categories of where you see Web3 and the metaverse fitting in to the larger strategic vision?
That sums it up extremely well. It's absolutely kind of the plan that we have. And, unlike what we had to do with Web 2, which we kind of adopted it late, right? I mean, we came in late to the game. Most government came in late to the game on Web 2. We want to make sure that we're there early because there is a place for government. And then one thing we learned from COVID, the big lesson is, our customers don't necessarily need to see us face to face. And we figured out how to engage and how to work with our customers and how to deliver the services, a lot of them remotely and virtually. And again, we have a presence, we have a place, and we absolutely need to be planning for the future, and we need to be there early and not be late to the game.
Perfect. And I want to now dig into number one, right, which is blockchain-enabled citizen services. And welcome, Anna. So, Anna, you want to talk a little bit about just briefly, give us a couple, kind of a high-level view of what it was like to incorporate social media and Web 2 at the county, and then what you have in store for Web 3 and blockchain.
Well, yeah, 20 years ago, I think it was no small feat to build Web 2 and Miami-Dade.gov and to spawn a whole 311 arm that actually dealt with handling customers' requests and actually giving real strong customer service and building trust in government. It's been 20 years in the making. I think Brett had talked about it a little earlier. I think one of the things that is most characteristic of today is that we're moving fast because of the pandemic. And because things are so rapidly progressing, what took 15 years to create is likely only going to take a couple years. So government has to be at the forefront of that, because at this point, we've built this incredible trust with residents, and so we're supporting our businesses. And if we're embracing these new technologies and we are helping businesses and residents better understand and embrace this new tech, then it is much more likely that they will adopt it within their day-to-day. They'll adopt it. So, one of the things we, Fernando and I were talking about yesterday in terms of a really cool way to start making it fun is to actually create DAOs or NFTs within our parks, within our golf services, within our recreational services, so that resident adoption, it becomes a value to be able to participate in Web3 and to dabble in it, and to most people don't have their wallets. They don't have their MetaMask set up. They don't understand, the currency that, sits on the blockchain. And so there are multiple aspects to it. So yeah, there's the aspect that we would handle transactional business, immutable NFTs, or titles and things like that will help secure or better safeguard transactions. But then there is that wider adoption that we do need to tackle. And so I do believe that what took us to have, I think, 1.5 million unique users a month with Miami-Dade.gov, it took us 15, 20 years to build that level of interaction in our Web 2 environment. And I do believe that in a Web 3 environment, within 5 years, we will already have that. So, and how we build that is where we are today. We're just in our infancy. Our team was just created. We're working very closely with and very closely placed with customer-facing departments and the IT shop and the CIO. And so it's very exciting, the collaboration that's taking place today and how rapidly that's going to move. And so it's kind of nuts. It's crazy just to see all of this stuff that, Angela and Brett were talking about, and just sort of figuring out how we could apply that to our cumbersome government processes. And it's not just government. Large organizations by nature are very bureaucratic in nature and have a lot of steps and a lot of processes. And so to cut those through innovation and simplifying processes and just wow, I got blown away with what Angela was talking about. I was like, wow, that would really make recruitment so much easier for me.
Yeah,
so my soapbox.
I'll connect you guys offline and make sure that conversation happens.
Incredible.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Anna, and you can tell me to bug off, because I know that you're probably bleary-eyed from drinking at 2 in the morning. But what could we safely say the county is going to do in Web3 and the metaverse in the next year's budget?
In the next year's budget. Whoa.
Yeah, so by this time next year, what, if anything, do we think the county, are we going to maybe move some property records onto the blockchain? Is there any titling? Like, is there anything we could see, or is this really a little further down the road?
I think that use case is definitely something we will pilot this year. We're already in conversations with private and parties that I don't want to disclose at this time. Yes, that absolutely. And so we will be piloting and creating use cases that are valuable to government, right? And then figuring out and working with, the clerk, and, there's various entities where something like a property title.
You don't have to caveat it too much. So we might begin to pilot some blockchain-based use cases for citizen services. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Okay.
Sorry, 3 years from now.
Yes.
If Anna Chamas has her way,
Yes.
can you give 2 or 3 concrete examples of how our lives interacting with the county will look maybe a little different? Whether it's local business taxes, whether it's real estate titles. Is there anything that you feel is within reach in the next 3 years in terms of concrete changes to the way you interact with citizens?
Within the next 3 years, my dream, if we're trying to talk about my dream, would be that we have a MetaGov. We have Miami-Dade in the metaverse. And by doing that, you can go and start a small business and run through all your transaction in a metaverse environment where you never had to walk up physically to County Hall, but you virtually interacted with County Hall very tactically, the way that Brett was talking about, where it's a tactical experience where you can feel it, you could touch it, where you're communicating with a customer specialist that's going to guide you through that process, a concierge type of experience. And some of it'll be AI based, and other parts of it will be an actual human person that's working in the customer service unit that, and so our employee workforce over the next several years is going to have to be fully retrained. And then we're going to be, and, MJ, Michael John, we call him MJ and I and Fernando, the 3 of us with the CIO, we will be embarking on behalf of the mayor in really working and collaborating with the academic institutions to retrain a whole new workforce that needs to gear up within the next couple of years.
And that's actually an amazing, that's an amazing segue to MJ.
Okay.
MJ, welcome. I just want to give a shout out to the Opelika CDC, where you and I first met, one of the great business support institutions in the county. And I'm so glad to see you have a kind of a larger sphere to play in now as one of the heads of workforce development. So MJ, build on what Anna was saying, like talk about what the county workforce of the future is going to need to be, and what the Miami-Dade County business workforce of the future is going to be, and how you're helping make that future a reality.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your comments. Thanks for having me. I think that the world, and we all see that it's changing, right? One of the terms that the mayor uses a lot is having, a county that is future ready, but also that the workforce and individuals in the county are future ready. And so, what does that really mean, right? Making sure that people have a really good grasp of the new technologies, but also making sure that our diverse community that we have here is represented and presented with those opportunities to really be able to benefit from some of the advances in technology and the prosperity that goes along with that, right? And so some of the focuses that we have for individuals in the community are how can we upskill individuals? How can we provide certificates and training programs to help individuals find new career pathways or the next step in the career that they're already in? And then how can we work with our employers, both big and small, to really understand what they need from an employee and help really do some matchmaking, right? And that can look like, uh, a bunch of different things, but really it's about kind of using our position as the county to be a liaison between employers and employees, and to really make sure that our workforce is future ready. Inside the county, I think a lot of it is changing our internal processes, having individuals that work in the county really thinking about the future and how can we implement technology to not only serve our constituents and community better, but also to improve our processes, right? I know one of the big things that Fernando talks about and that we're really focused on is making things easy to do business with the county, easy to open a business, easy to do whatever engagement that you have with the local government. And I think a lot of that is going to be leveraging technology, but then also making sure that we provide through some of Danilo's programming, through some of the programming at our anchor institutions and our universities, through some of the programming in the public schools, are providing people with pathways to really learn about a lot of this technology and things so they're not left behind, but also that they feel comfortable in it. You know, I think that one thing that sometimes happens in tech is that it is not always brought to a diverse audience early on, right? And I think that that's something that we want to really be focused on. Miami-Dade County is one of the most diverse counties in the United States, and making sure that they have a participation and an understanding of this technology so that therefore they can create new products and services that will benefit all of us.
MJ, I'm going to put you on the spot. Imagine you were in front of a group of graduating seniors at FIU or Miami-Dade College. So they're about to go into the workforce. A lot of them already are working part-time. What advice would you give about how they can become workforce ready?
I think that mine's going to be never stop learning. You know, I think that there might be a little bit of a misconception that, you know, graduating from college is kind of the end. I think graduating from college is very much just the start, right? I think that, you know, my degree is in management information systems, which is really more of an IT degree. So a good portion of what I've learned about finance has happened after college. And so I think that that's what I would really focus on. You know, there are opportunities to learn on the job, but I think that we all have to be diligent and take those opportunities to learn on our own time, right? So I think to continuously be engaged, to continuously be reading, to continuously be learning is what's going to set you up for success and separate you from the rest of the field. Life is, you know, a journey of perpetual education and learning, both, you know, in every different aspect, relationships, educate, or, you know, work-wise, technology, all of those different things. You have to continuously be learning and growing.
You're on mute, Dan.
Oh, your mic cut out again.
That was awesome, MJ.
Yes, okay, you did.
Thank you.
My advice would be to keep playing video games. Keep playing video games. By the way, my one of my stories about this is back in high school, I was with a kid named Josh Luber, and Josh and I were buddies. He and I played basketball together. He was a total sneakerhead. And so he always loved the latest sneakers. Anyway, Josh Luber ended up creating StockX, a multi-billion-dollar company based on his passion for shoes and the resale market for shoes. So the bottom line is, I'm not kidding about playing video games. You know, Angela's entire platform has a gamified component. Video games are absolutely the entry point into the metaverse. So, you know, please do, follow your passions and enjoy the technology because the lines between professional and business and gaming are blurring incredibly. And it's also, frankly, a part of inclusiveness. Like, you know, the guy that Angela was talking about who was worked at a auto body shop was probably also an avid gamer and was active in technology. And like, he didn't just come cold to technology and coding, he was actually a user. and it just made it a lot easier, I'm sure, for him to then, you know, fully manifest his incredible skills. Fernando, before we wrap up, I wanted to give you the last word. First of all, what a great team. Congratulations. And I want to ask you the same question that I asked Anna, which is, what is your vision for the next 3 to 5 years for what's going to be possible in the county?
So thanks for the question, and I appreciate you're noticing that I have a great team. My MO is usually surround myself with people that are smarter than me, and that's pretty easy because I'm usually not the smartest guy in the room. But you know, what do I see in 3 years? You know, I'm one of those weird government people that have been in government for so long, but it hasn't really worn me down. You know, I've been trying to change and innovate and try to make sure that we're more efficient and more effective for a long time. And I think this is a real tool that we can use in order to do that. You know, I see this as a not so dystopian Ready Player One-ish kind of world where, you know, we're not totally living in the metaverse in a few years, but it is a significant part of our day. And I see it because I got a 15-year-old who's usually sitting right next to me over here on his computer that looks like a nuclear reactor. And you know, that's what they do. They're interacting online. They're playing Roblox, they're on Discord. That's the generation that we're going to be serving in the next few years. And I think, you know, we need to be ready to do so. And the way to do so is exactly like you said. We need to maybe gamify a little bit our government experience and give that to folks. I mean, look, I've seen things and I've told folks things like, imagine your building inspection being done virtually. Imagine having a meeting in you know, your high rise in a virtual version of that high rise with your building inspector, with the fire guy, with your architect, and they're there looking at stuff, you know, kind of in a virtual environment to be able to solve your problems. And, you know, it's going to be a much more efficient and effective world. And that's where I hope government can come in and make it easier and not throw the roadblocks in that we usually do. So there.
So I want to do a quick lightning round for the Miami-Dade County folks. Could you guys give one resource? This doesn't have to be a Web3 or Metaverse resource, but just one resource, whether it's the libraries or Career Source South Florida, that you would urge and encourage, you know, the folks who are on today's call to just leverage. I'll start with you, Michael John. MJ, what is a resource, one resource that you would highly recommend for folks who are looking to just get started in engaging the county, not necessarily in the metaverse, but just in services that are available to us?
Sure. His name would be Danilo Vargas, right? I think he is a huge resource, a huge connector. He's a wealth of information. He is the architect and the gentleman who pushes Strive 305, where I think that a lot of the programming, tech, and things that we are talking about will continue to come from. And I think that by connecting with him, you are connected to myself, Fernando, Anna, and the mayor. And he, I'm sure, Dan, you've known him for a long time, as though you've known me since I've moved down here. Danilo is connected to the people and really on the ground, right? And so you can meet with him, touch him, have those conversations. And I think that he can help direct people into the right direction to find the resources that will suit them at the best when it comes to what the county is offering.
And every Friday morning, he runs something called the Morning Huddle. Every Friday, he runs the Morning Huddle, which is connecting you to resources in town, both government and non. So Danilo, please put a link to how people can join the Morning Huddle. It's every Friday. Anna, same question to you.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's so unoriginal. So of me. So I will say miamidade.gov /Strive 305. You can find all business information and everything that Danilo will be putting out on his website. We're going to be building that out. We are going to add a ton of content to it, and we are going to be expanding the breadth of innovation economic development within miamidade.gov. And so if you're not finding it through Danilo, through the Morning Huddle, through these biz hacks, you can always find it on miamidade.gov.
And Fernando, giving you the hardest position, take us home.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to be completely unoriginal, and yeah, Danilo is the guy. I mean, if you're a small business, if you're a small business in Miami-Dade County, I mean, you know, you need to engage with Danilo.
Oh my God.
I'm
This is too
incredibly
much love for Danilo. He's going to
look.
explode.
I've been here a few months, and you know, I've grown to love the guy already. Just in the few.
Oh, that's great.
He's an amazing resource. He's tireless. And we're going to have to, you know, create him an AI version in our metaverse of the future so that, you know, he's available to all businesses 24/7 at all times. But yeah, Danilo's the man. And
All right.
give him the credit.
Good. You know, Career Source South Florida
Thank
is
you,
another
guys.
great resource. Yeah, well deserved, Danilo. Career Source South Florida is another great resource that's county funded. It's not actually part of the county. Let me give the last word to Angela. Angela, you've had a chance to listen to how the largest county in the state of Florida, a $10 billion a year operation, is planning to use the Web3 in the metaverse. Any reflections that you have from, you know, Silicon Valley and the future, other parts of the country that you wanted to share as we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would say, coming from San Francisco, coming from Silicon Valley, that, you know, was one thing that I think could have been done better in that environment, was really getting the, you know, people who have been in San Francisco their whole lives, people who had, you know, really come from those communities, fully integrated in the tech community that was growing there. And I really see this opportunity for Miami. Many of us, you know, have come to, you know, to Miami to build, you know, the future, to build these companies, to build the Web3, you know, future. And, you know, I think there's such an amazing opportunity to get everyone that's, you know, been in Miami, who like knows this, you know, this community and wants to be a part of that movement, involved. And I think that really is going to take involvement from the mayor's office, because I think, you know, someone made this point earlier. It's not only just getting people opportunities, it's helping people understand that those opportunities are for them. Like, to help it, you know, understand that they bring a lot to the table that the companies need, and, you know, that they should, you know, really use all of these resources that are being provided for them to you know, create that that integration. And so that's what I would say is this huge opportunity I see for Miami, that, you know, I was kind of late to, you know, the community in San Francisco, and I saw that there was a big divide between the local community and the tech community. And I think that that was such a loss, because, you know, we need all of these people that want to engage in this industry to help build the future. And so I think that the mayor's office, you know, in Miami and Miami-Dade are already, you know, being such a like powerhouse in terms of this, and really driving all of these initiatives. I, to be fair, did not see that so much, you know, in my time in California. And so I would love to be part of that movement as well. And I think that that is entirely the opportunity on the table here.
Awesome.
You're muted, Dan.
Sorry, thank you so much for that. And I want to thank everyone for your patience with our technical difficulties. We have one more of these coming up as we wrap up season 6, where we're going to explore case studies of the metaverse with some special surprises at the end of that as well. Thank you to Michael, John, Anna, and Fernando. Congrats again on the budget getting passed. Danilo, I hope you feel our love. Angela Antony and Brett Circe. Amazing. And thank you guys for giving of your time to our community to help educate us and prepare us for the future. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week, same time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.